Good evening. Yes,
I don't know if people saw the topic. We took it from Booja Booja chocolates, and it's one of my favourite little messages that come with it. And it's
in one of my favourite chocolates. In case anybody ever needs to know that.
The favourite chocolate.
Yeah, our favourite chocolate. Booja Booja. Champagne truffle.
No, caramel.
Champagne truffle. Just in case anybody ever needs to know.
So
Booja
taken
Booja.
from Mr. Booja Booja. I'll just wait for Flip to join. Do the explanation. Hi, Flip.
Felicity, you're in detention. You're late. This is how kids are learning now, isn't it? Oh, Susan and Flick in detention. Oh, we'll let her off.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susan. You're late.
Sorry. Hi everyone.
Hello.
Happy birthday for yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much.
So we're just saying that the title for tonight came from the Booja Booja chocolates. There's always like a little pearl of wisdom that they give.
Sometimes.
I think they're all pretty good.
This one's really nice. We like this one.
So it says, love when everything is pressing you to be less.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be a cool title for tonight, because I think with everything going on in the world at the moment, we've had so many conversations with people and they're struggling with the idea of that.
Yeah.
And kind of frustration, anger, seem to be the things that are occurring to people, and the idea of loving and not judging at this time seems to be quite difficult. So I thought it would be a nice thing to speak to this evening.
I'm really glad. I don't know if Gordell is still there. I'm hoping he is. I would love to hear what Gordell has to say about this subject, because one of the things when we met Gordell out in South Africa, one thing that really strikes you when you meet that man is love. It's like he's one of the most loving people. I would love to hear Gordell's take on the topic tonight, if at any point he wishes to chip in. Often Gordell can't make it on for too long, but
we're 2 hours ahead, I think, so it's
he's got kids. Yeah, it's to us it's one of the most important topics, in not just in a pandemic but for life itself. You know, in a world where everything's really serious, and in a world where everybody's trying to get somewhere, you know, it's almost like love's almost a luxury. Or perhaps it's for those people. I'm serious about life. I haven't got time for love. You know, I'm serious about life. I've got to fucking get somewhere. There's no room in my world for love. Love's weakness. You know, that's Paul and I have had conversations about this, and Lee, I know you and I, like, I think you and I and Paul have been very similar. Dan, I've got no idea, man. I hope to get to speak to you at some point about your backstory. I'd love to hear it. But I know that Lee and Paul and myself, I'm guessing you're a fella, so, you know, there's quite a lot of love can almost be seen as a bit of a weakness in men, and men have to be kind of stoic and hard and tough and commanding almost. It's almost like, I don't know, I speak very generalistically when I'm saying this. And it's almost as though being hard and tough is like a strength. You know, it's something that's celebrated. It's been celebrated within like male side of life, and in female, I suppose, to a certain degree, where being tough, being hard, being unmoving, making our mind up and not being, I've made my mind up, that's it, I'm on it, I know it. No, I'm not going to change my mind. It's a strength of mind, you know. It's a strength of mind not to change our mind. Love is almost a sign of weakness, it's often perceived. But we wanted to talk about that tonight. We wanted to talk about love tonight. Love when...
Well, also, I think it's from when I heard that, I thought in so many ways that is what is a byproduct of when we start to understand. And I think anyone I know who comes across this understanding, it seems they're able to love more. It doesn't mean that we don't get lost and act out, but love seems to be a byproduct of understanding. And that's why I loved it so much, because I realized there is so many kind of ideas around love and what it means. And I heard it as a way more universal love, like it's a love without conditions, because it's very easy to love the world or people or things happening when it's how we think it should be, or how they are how we think they should be. But can we go beyond our own judgments and our own need and ideas and actually love regardless? And that's something that I feel started to change when I came across this understanding, and I'm forever learning from it, because I get caught up in judgments and can feel like I'm right about certain things. And as soon as I take that stance and get judgmental, the feeling of love falls away, and it's kind of a me and them, and it creates separation. And it was at a time when actually I feel like I had got a bit lost in my head when I got the Booty Booty chocolates and it said that, and I was like, wow, that message was so perfect for me in this moment, because it felt like I didn't have any other option. And it feels at the moment, like we've been discussing, that at this time love is what the world needs. It's what we need. And it can seem like there's so many things that are going to get in the way of that, and I feel like the principles kind of uncovers the illusion of that. There isn't loads of stuff getting in the way. There's one thing that gets in the way of us experiencing that, and that's our own mind. And the beauty of our own mind is that it can change. And I feel like with understanding it changes more quickly and in ways that surprise us. And I think we can so easily get self-righteous, and that seems more important than loving. But Susan, you eating again.
Susan, let's just watch you eat. It's fine.
We need to move the calls, because it's always your dinner time. Yeah. No, of course. Turn your camera off. And I think I keep learning from it.
I think it means a lot to every single person on earth.
I've sent it to quite a few people, and they're like, yeah.
No, I don't mean that. I didn't actually mean the
No.
little piece of cardboard. I just mean love. You know, from the word go, we set off trying to find things and people that we love. From the word go, we set off trying to find things that we enjoy doing as kids. And then we try and find people that we love, whether that be friendship, whether it be romantic love. We go to places where we love. You know, we're on this constant, everybody on earth is on this constant pursuit for love. When I'm saying love, I mean everything that comes along with it, like peace and happiness and joy. I don't think there's many people on this planet who go actively in search to make their own lives utter hell. I remember the time when I went to see Sue last night. The lady who introduced me to the principals went and dropped her a Christmas present off, and I went to see Sue, and I remember Sue, we're just reflecting on 7 or 8 years ago, whenever it was, that she introduced me to the principals and introduced me to Sydney Banks. And Jen and I were driving away, and we said, one thing that Sue has got in utter bucket loads is love. She just loves people. And I think that's what I kind of got from Sue when I was really struggling in my life. I found somebody, you know, love doesn't really judge. There's not really judgment when people are in a space of love. There's acceptance. But judgment is more reserved for righteousness, I suppose you could say.
Separation.
Separation. Yeah, separation. But love unified Sue and I. And I remember it took me 9 weeks before I really saw what I saw personally, what I saw into Sid's message. But the thing that kept me going up until that moment was Sue's love. And then when I remember when I had a conversation with Sue one morning and I went for a walk. And I ended up watching Sydney Banks for the first time when I went for a walk. And I can't really explain what happened on this walk. I can't. But I can tell you it was love. And in that moment of love, like Jenny said, love without any condition, love without any barrier, love without any judgment. There was nobody else there. There was me and Rusty and a jackdaw. But this love came from within me. And in that moment, my life healed. That love that was suddenly realized or released from within my being, however you want to describe it. It healed my life in the moment. And in a world full of fear, and in this world full of so much frigging information, we do not know what the hell to do with it all. In this very experimental time, in humanity's time, when all of a sudden we've got access to everybody's thoughts. Social media, the news, newspapers, WhatsApp, Telegram, telephones, YouTube. Suddenly we've got so much, suddenly for the first time in human history, we are surrounded by everybody's thoughts, all these different realities. And humanity has entered, or much of humanity has entered into this space of, what the fuck is going on? Who do I believe? What's true? In this time when computers and algorithms and stuff only give you what you're interested in, it doesn't give you a balanced opinion. It only gives you what you type into it. If you're interested in wheelbarrows, you're going to get videos on wheelbarrows suggested to you. And you're going to continue looking at wheelbarrows and assume everybody's interested in wheelbarrows. Wow, everybody must be interested in wheelbarrows. I get loads of wheelbarrows. And if you're interested in fishing, you'll get loads of videos on fishing. It's the algorithms. So that bring you balance. So at this present moment in time, we are swimming in so much information. But I think it was my father or my sister said, swimming in information, drowning in information and looking for wisdom. We have no wisdom. Seems to be so little wisdom in this world. I was speaking with one of my dear friends who is staunchly anti what's going on with coronavirus, vaccines, and down a rabbit hole of some description. I'm not passing any judgment on what that person is looking into is either right nor wrong. I don't call it conspiracy personally, I call it alternative points of view, because I don't know. But this person was splitting people up. You've got the good people and you've got the really bad people, and she was so angry, so irate. She was no fun to be around. No fun whatsoever to be around. And we were like, look, whoa, can you please just rein it in? You don't get to see us too much. Can you just rein it in, please? And we ended up having a few kind of heated conversations because I feel like there's something missing. I really respect that person's get up and go and the drive. I really respect that. I really respect that. I think there are times in life when we need people to stand up. Totally agree. Totally not agree. But I've never heard one wise person who has stood up and said hate. I've never heard one wise person who's ever stood up and said destroy. I've never heard one wise person stand up and say separate, divide. Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, any of the saints or prophets, Sid. Nobody says divide the world into compartments of evil and good. They've all come back and said love. Learn to love. And it was during this conversation I remembered something, an experiment that I remember coming across, and it was called the 100 monkey experiment. Are people familiar with that? Hands up anybody who's familiar with the 100 monkey experiment.
100.
100.
Actually 100.
100.
Is it the one where the monkeys mimic each other?
No, it wasn't. No.
Different one.
I'd like to know about that. What did they do? Did they all walk around looking like monkeys?
They mimic hate and aggressive behavior.
Did they?
Yeah.
No, this wasn't that.
Okay. Cool.
This was an experiment. That was, I think it almost came about by accident, as many of these great revelations do. Almost a bit like penicillin was an accidental discovery. I'll just let Frank join on. Hiya, Frank.
Hello.
Hiya, mate. Welcome.
Oh, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, mate. We're just talking about. Are you aware of the 100 monkey experiment?
100 what?
Monkey experiment.
No. Oh, it's not the one where they types out the works of Shakespeare.
No, what's that?
Maybe that's a million monkeys. If you have a million monkeys and put them in front of the typewriter, one of them will type out the works of Shakespeare.
No, it wasn't that. But
Sorry.
I like it. No, thanks for joining us, buddy. We're talking about love tonight. And
Good.
yeah, a really important topic. And I was just explaining about a friend of mine who's kind of very down a rabbit hole of alternative points of view and wants the world to be different, should I say. And going about it in a way that is separating, it's divisive. Divisions create war. Divisions create fear. 100th. All right, Jen, she Googled it. 100th monkey experiment. So anyway, the 100th monkey experiment was it was conducted out in Japan, and it was done with macaque monkeys. And macaque monkeys, they populate all the little islands around the mainland of Japan and also on the mainland of Japan itself. And these monkeys love sweet potatoes. And so every day they go out and they throw sweet potatoes out into the sand, and the monkeys walk along and they pick them up. They love the sweet potatoes, but they hate the sand. So after a few days of doing this, the scientists saw a little baby monkey pick up its sweet potato, walk down to the water and wash it. And that day, another little monkey saw it do the same. Another little monkey saw this monkey wash the sweet potato. So it took its sweet potato down to the water and it washed the sweet potato. And this carried on for some time. More and more younger monkeys coming along and washing. They seem to be the quickest ones to pick it up, wash the sweet potatoes, and then they taught it to some of the adults. And then some of the adults started to wash the sweet potatoes. And at some point, it reached a critical mass within the consciousness of the macaque monkey. And then across all the islands, and even onto the mainland, spanning hundreds of miles sometimes, monkeys started to wash their sweet potatoes. It reached a critical mass within the consciousness of the monkeys that they then started to wash their sweet potatoes. So I showed this lady this video showing this. And at the end of this video, it was really beautiful because it said, what did we do then? Well, we did an experiment on human beings. And what they did was they made a poster of 100 faces, faces within faces, within faces, within faces, within faces, within faces. And they showed groups of people this picture. And they said to people, how many faces can you see in it? And they were getting like 6, 7, 8, 9 faces. Because that was the kind of range that they were getting. We could see that many. And then they flew over to the UK and they put this picture out on BBC, on a small time television program on the BBC at some point. And they pointed out to all the viewers where every single one of the faces was in this picture. And then they rung up Australia and said, we've done the experiment, we've put it out there. And then they brought the next group of people in. I don't know the figures, but they said the numbers drastically increased to the amount of faces that they could see. This was information shared through the ether, through consciousness. Not through communication verbally, not through Telegram, not through WhatsApp, not through Facebook, but it was shared through consciousness. Jesus Christ said, the second coming of Christ won't be a man. It will be when sufficient number of people realize Christ consciousness. That's what he said. It will be when enough people wake up to love. That it has a drastic impact on the consciousness of the planet. It affects the planet. It affects all people. Love. The one thing that is the true healer of this world, we are already that. Every single one of us is already it. If anybody's interested, the scientific name for that study of what people call collective consciousness in science, I'm almost a bit hesitant to talk about scientific things a lot of the time because it almost creates it as though it's not spiritual. But that doesn't matter because it's not about being spiritual or scientific. It's just what is. But I don't want it can almost become quite analytical when it becomes a science as opposed to the fact, if you understand what I'm saying, if I'm making any sense. But the scientific term to the study of this collective consciousness, how people or beings within a certain species affect one another and can bring about change within populations. That study is called noetics. 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 Really fascinating thing. Something that's people have been aware of for thousands of years. That's why Buddhas would always say, and the Buddhists would always say, stop trying to change the world. Change yourself and the world will change. And they mean that on 2 levels. One level is, as many people on this screen that we're looking at now, they have realized within themselves that consciousness is reality. I should say reality is consciousness. And they have gone through a drastic change within themselves. They have woken up to the power of the mind, the creative force of reality, of a spiritual experience that we call life. But that realization doesn't just stop with us. It ripples out into the consciousness of humanity. This is no small thing. This really is no small thing. So it's a really beautiful thing as we start to take care of ourselves, as we start to find love. And when what I said to this person was, All those people you think are evil, you need to bring them into your love. You need to love them. Jesus would say, love thy enemy. Not just because it makes you feel nice, but it's because it's good for the world. It's good for people. It's good for the world. Love is the thing that everything is made of. That was the thing that hit me so hard when I had an experience up in Scotland, this experience of the most beautiful love I cannot explain. But I knew it wasn't outside of me. It wasn't when I was in my body, could I say. I can't really explain. But there was just the most perfect love, and I knew that that was at the heart of all people. It wasn't fear. Fear is created from the illusion. Fear is created from this experience of life. Fear, or should I say, fear is created within this experience of life, not from it. It's not created from it. It's created within. So to start to understand fear and love, we must start to see the difference between what's true and what isn't. What's real and what's illusory. All fear is ultimately illusory. If you really look at fear, the majority of it's based in time. Time's illusory. Time's a creation of the mind. It's our imagination of the future. That's what the future is. All the future is an imagination. And it's our memories of the past. Creates the illusion of time. And in fear, there has to be a duality created. There has to be a duality present. There has to be somebody there to be afraid of something. Something in the world to be afraid of. Which ultimately, in the grand schemes of life, there is no duality. This universe is a singular thing showing up as infinite amount of things. We're aspects of that. Each and every single one of us is an aspect of that. But fear is always born of illusion. That's why when people find love, Paul and I again were having a chat not so long ago, like, fear dies. And when fear dies, wars die. Putting people down dies. Needing to control the world, greed dies. Anxieties die. Depression dies. Anger becomes pointless. You see the illogic of it. You see that all those things that men are kind of hold so dear to themselves, they're pointless in 99.9% of times. There will be times when we'll get angry, and it'll be probably quite a useful thing every now and again to really make a point. But to live in it constantly is it's hell. And that hell is the thing that we put into the world. But love, the thing that everybody's searching for, we go looking for it in partners, we go looking for it in places, we go looking for it in food, views, music, poetry, clothes, hobbies. Love is the thing that unifies. And if you look at it, it's really logical. When two people fall in love, they feel connected. When you love a piece of music, it connects with you, connects with your soul, you connect with it. If you have love is the collapsing of duality. The illusion is this. The truth is that. We're not all connected. We're all one. And when we fall in love no matter what, it is the unification. It is us realizing the truest nature of life. That's why we love it. Because it's a recognition of truth, and truth heals and sets people free. Love is the answer to all the problems. I never saw this. I never saw this in my life. I thought the answer to all my problems was me being right and people knowing it. And if they didn't know it, well, they will do eventually, because I'm going to persist. But when I found love, it was like freedom. It was freedom. Love is the truest freedom. And I'm not talking about love for a place, love for music, love for people. I'm talking about love itself, love for life. Just love, just the experience. The truest state of being, the thing that everything is made of. God is love. It's not without reason that's written in the Bible. It's because it's true.
I think also Sid used to speak a lot about love. And I remember hearing Linda Pettit speak about, she'd asked him on a workshop, so is love all we need then, Sid, to change the world? And I don't know if he actually answered her straight away of whether he went away and thought about it. I think he went away and thought about it, and what he came back with, and he just said, love and understanding. And that's why he felt his message was so important, because it seems when people start to have more understanding or awareness, it changes everything, and we are more able to love. Like I was saying to Dave the other day, like, it's really good you don't take Rusty personally, because he like has a go at you every day. And like, I get away with murder. I can pick him up, kiss him, do all kinds of things, get gank out of his eye, and he generally doesn't growl at me too much, but he pretty much growls at you
all the time. Like, and every night if you try and get into bed, he's like tries to bite you, and you try and stroke him to tell him you love him, and it's not like you don't take it personally, you love him anyway. And I think initially when I learned about the principles, it was Dr. Roger Mills kind of spoke about it in two ways. And he said, first of all, I'm going to talk about this to you in a way that's personal. So he spoke about the principles in a personal way. So he said, you know, there's personal mind, personal thought, and personal consciousness. And he said, this is made up, like this doesn't exist, but just for the moment, sort of bear with me. And he just said, the experience that you live in is through these principles within yourself. So your complete reality is created through these three principles. Whatever you think, you feel, and therefore your reality, you act. And then he said, but what Sid spoke about were universal principles. These weren't personal. This is how the entire universe work, through these divine principles. But what he was saying is, see this for yourself. See this to be true for yourself. What that then does to the mind is it settles it down, because it completely eradicates all other possibilities for why we feel how we feel. Because it's so easy to think it's outside. Mm. So it's almost like a map inside. The rules to the game.
And when that happens and we settle, we get to experience what's already present, what we already are. And I think it can seem like we need to learn something or gain understanding to have the experience, but it's like the understanding seems to be in the falling away of what we believed to be true before. And then what's left is the truth. So it's almost like throughout life, we get stuff to fall off us. And what happens is we get a clearer and clearer view. And I know that the way that Roger kind of described it was like a model in psychology called health realization, and it was in textbooks, and different people within the NHS that I've worked with before are like, oh yeah, I did a module on health realization. And that was when Sid was like, right, take these books off. Like this, that's a really superficial understanding of what I'm really saying, because it was almost like the spiritual nature then got taken away. And it feels like now, I was saying today, but I've got no idea why, but like the deeper meaning of the principles just seems to be like in my face at the moment. And like even the person you were speaking about that at the moment is really struggling, like the only thing I felt for them was love. And sometimes it was almost like a machine gun of information and kind of anger. And it was really nice because I didn't feel my well-being being
Eroded.
Touched. And I just felt so much love. And then at night, there's certain people that come to mind and I just send them love. And I hope that their light, the light that does exist within them, is revealed to them so that all the false stuff can fall away and they can find themselves more present. And then we were in bed the other day and I was like, God, it's a mad time at the moment. Isn't it a mad world to be in? And you're like, well, not really right now. We're just laying in bed and we've been reading to each other. And it really brought me back to the moment. And I realized how easy it is to get caught up in, it's a mad time. It's a crazy time to be alive. It's so unpredictable. It's this. But it was like right now we're sat here doing this.
The world has certainly been through a madder time than this.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
No, I wasn't there.
But right now, in this moment. And I read a post by Johnny Bowden, who's been around the principles. We've kind of met a few times, but I don't know him so well. I saw his post and it was about nothing's changed. And I thought it was such a good post. I'll try and find it and share it on our group, because he was saying that it can seem like now there's something else going on other than what the principles has revealed to us. Now it's different. Now it's something else. But he was saying, no, nothing has changed. It's still exactly the same how reality is created, whether we're in the middle of a pandemic or not. But how easy it is for it to look like it's something else now. This is more serious. This is more important.
This is more real.
This is able to impact me and affect me because of freedom of movement and loss and all of those things. But the way in which we create reality is still the same. That hasn't changed. So the freedom in which we are born with hasn't changed or gone anywhere. Our mind freedom is still totally free to dream and live and believe and
be happy.
It's such a good post, because I thought at this time it seems like there's all these things that are in the way of our happiness or well-being or peace of mind. Like the amount of travel that we had planned for this year that we've had to cancel. I've been so grateful for this understanding, because I've been like, what now? What? Oh, we're doing this, and then we've got to spend all this time with Rusty, which we've loved, and now what? And then we've just found out today that Cumbria is going into tier 4, and it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do that, but maybe. But it seems there's been more ease in it. Like, this is what's happening, and my well-being isn't dependent on it.
That's right.
And then when I see other people, like, I know that's true for them too. So even like with this machine gun of like all ideas and upset that our friend had, even within that, the well-being hasn't gone anywhere. It's just you're caught up in ideas and beliefs and future thinking that looks so real you can't see a way out right now. But there's every possibility that at some point that can clear and you experience what you already sat right in. Yeah. You're already sat in mental health, mental well-being, peace, love. But our minds take us away. And it doesn't matter how long someone's been around this understanding. I've loved watching kind of all the different dialogues online with all the different facilitators and people following the facilitators and posts, and then like posts that almost speak against that post, and watching when you're like, oh, wow, we've got so much ego. It's so it's so innocent because it looks and feels so real. And Sid's whole message is the nature of this game of life is that there's these principles and they create reality to look real. So of course we're going to get caught up in it.
Everybody on earth.
And I think that's
no exception.
I've absolutely loved just I don't really take part much in Facebook, but just seeing and recognizing how easy it is for us to get self-righteous, to get right. My dad used to say to me,
And to
do you
idly believe.
do you want to be kind or do you want to be right? When I was a teenager, and I'd be like, I pretty much want to be right. But now it feels like, for whatever reason,
You still do that.
well, I did need to with the 100th monkey thing.
You
I could have been kind, but it was inaccurate.
You could have been kind, couldn't you? You just made me look a dickhead.
But more of the time, I feel like kindness seems like the only option. It doesn't seem like it's a good idea, because otherwise all these things sound like good ideas. And that's the nature of the principles. You have to see this for yourself. Otherwise you're just hearing someone else's good ideas.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff that I've come to realize, people have told me for the last 15, 16 years. There's been books that my mum gave me as a teenager that were pointing to similar things, but I didn't hear it. I had to see it for myself. And suddenly it was true within me rather than a good idea. Like, it can be so easy to, oh, right, I just need to feel more gratitude and love. I just need to do that now. It's really hard to make yourself feel grateful and feel love when it's just not there. Like, I love it when my sister used to try and get daughters to apologise to each other when they're still really angry. They're like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, they totally don't mean it. It's just
Mean it. I'm so sorry.
It's just empty words. And I think I love now I don't have to try and force that. And there's totally times when I get caught up in self-righteous. And the beautiful thing is we have that gauge. Like, within us, there is a gauge to when we're getting further and further away from that space of unconditional love.
Yeah.
Because we get more and more irate and more righteous and
more dragged
tense
into the illusion of life.
So it's like we even have a feedback system. Like, we totally override it and ignore it so much of the time, but we have a feedback system. And I feel like the difference with understanding is that you kind of get a sense of that feedback system and you don't go so far down the road. Like, you get woken up to it quicker. Whereas I used to just be totally lost before. Actually, I don't think I'd still think I was right. I might apologise, but I'd still think I was right. Whereas now it's like I keep going. Me and Lisa have been having so many conversations. I just keep saying, I just don't know. I don't know. I can have a belief and an idea, and it can look true and real to me, but I don't ultimately know. And I think that's why I've loved having this understanding in my life, because it's the weirdest statement, because it's the most untangible, formless, wordless place that I'm pointing to, but it feels like I have a foundation in which everything then comes from. So even though it's not a physical foundation, it's a foundation in something true and factual and constant. And I think I know Keith and Valda, who share this, say that when we come across a constant within science, it's really exciting, because there's something you can keep referring back to. And it feels like with this, like, it can be, I don't even, like, when we've had conversations or disagreements, like, you can't go too far that way, because you catch yourself. I'm caught in my own reality and it looks true and real to me. And that's the only thing that's happening. And then we don't have to defend or fight. And then we start to listen. And I think we spoke about this on the last group, like, our listening improves when we start to have an understanding of this. Because I wasn't ever listening to the person. I was listening, waiting for the opportunity for me to put my point of view across. But when we really start to listen to ourselves first, and then we start listening to other people, it's amazing what we can hear. And I know that within relationships, people have said they get to have these conversations that they tried to have so many times, and they just got all caught in ego and frustration and trying to be right. But when you can you take the personal out and you sit and you really can listen without all of that, you hear different. And you see how reality is changing within us constantly. And that the less ego we have, the less belief, and another way of describing ego is belief, that colours everything that we see, the more we're able to listen. And listening is a really underrated thing. I know that when I've spoken to parents, they say, like, before their children have language, you have to really, like, feel and listen in, what do they need? And you get a sense of it, and you see, like, how do you know they wanted that? They just know. It's that kind of listening that we can do for one another. And then we don't have we don't have to have someone else to be how we need them to be for us to be all right.
Gordell, are you there, mate?
He was putting Tracy to bed, but he popped
That
back
was
up.
at 20 past, wasn't it? Don't know if Gordell he's not. He was on there a moment ago. Has anybody got anything? Gordell?
I'm here, man. I'm here.
Is there anything you want to talk about on this topic? Is there anything that's coming to you?
So this is about love. So man, good evening to all first. And I want I want people to understand that I'm a French speaker, but I usually put my word in English. So you know what I do believe is that love is really everything that is. God is everything that does exist. There are all these sacred books. We have the Holy Bible. We have the Holy Quran. We have all of those sacred books. And I remember when we were in monastery very long ago in the DRC, one day there was this very old priest that came and he was preaching. And he said to us, you know, this is a tale. You know, there was once in a convent of nuns. So the superior, so the superior, like a bishop, if I may say, so came in the convent, in the monastery, and did ask all these nuns that were there, who in all of you here, who can put himself on one foot and resume the Holy Bible in only 3 seconds? Quiet. And then this wise nun stepped up and said, the whole Holy Bible only speaks about love of God and your neighbor. The love of God and your neighbor. So it's all about love, only love. The whole Bible. So this really changed everything in me. You know, the power that we have as human beings is that of recognizing that we are all love. And when we come to the point that we can love ourselves, everything changes. Love ourselves. When we can love ourselves, everything changes. So when we discover the power of love, life just becomes a magical experience. A magical experience. If you have time, I wanted to tell you something about what just happened to me.
We've got time.
Thank you. That's happened on Thursday last week. On Thursday last week, in the evening, I was supposed to travel to the DRC from South Africa. So I went to the airport. So I live in Johannesburg, actually. So I went to the airport, to Ortambo International Airport. Got there, and the airport service, so I supposed to fly to Congo with Ethiopian Airlines, actually. And then when I got there, the manager came to me and just said, I cannot board the airline. Why? Because I'm sitting on a wheelchair. Just like that. Because I use a wheelchair, I must not board Ethiopian Airlines. I got very angry. The whole night I was angry. So why was I angry? Because this was about going home and go to build a roof, kind of roof, a traditional roof on the grave of my father and my mother. Because my father passed, so my mother passed on, now it's 10 years ago, and my father now is 3 years ago. And all this happened while I'm in South Africa. So this time around, I decided to go there and build something on their grave, something traditional in the DRC. So now I have to be refused to board the line and go back there and do something like that. So I got angry. So why, again, I was angry? Another reason is like, because I paid all the tickets. And this was in October. In October already, I paid my ticket for DRC. And then I could just be refused like that because of a wheelchair. And I also paid my full. So I paid in full all the place where I was supposed to spend 14 days there in the DRC. So there was an accessible place, a kind of hotel that I've paid. And I had to work like 2 months in South Africa to afford to pay that hotel. 2 months of work. And I have to be just refused like that. And also, you can imagine, I had to pay the COVID test, all the things on top. So I got angry the whole night, and this anger was damaging me. It did damage my relationship with my daughter. It damaged my relationships with my wife. It even started damaging my health. But the next day, on Friday, it just came that I thought about you, Dave. I thought about Jen. I thought about freedom thinking. And I thought about how negative thought can damage a human being. Negative thought. And as you can ask me right now, Godel, what did you do? Simple. So I took deep breath. And then I started being grateful. So at that point, I started connecting to a mission. So there was the mission about people with disability that are being forgotten. There is that. But secondly, which is most important right now, was much about discovering the reality of my new life. You know, I'm living in a wheelchair now for more than 17 years now. And in a wheelchair, I never really like to appear. I never really like to appear in pictures of people, those people who saw me, Godel, sportive, playing soccer, doing whatever, karate, boxing, but that's the man in a wheelchair. I never like to give that picture. But all of a sudden, this is Godel in an airport, and now all over on Twitter, on Facebook, and this post being shared by people that I don't even know. And now everyone has to see that guy, that Godel in a wheelchair. What was missing there was acceptance, was love. Love of what? Love of me. Love of Godel. You know, when I connected with this reality, that I had to love myself to that point, frankly, I started to experience peace, love of Godel, love of myself, love of who I became. I started to experience peace. And I am at peace, I can tell you. Love, power of love, accepting who we are, who we are becoming. Everything may start changing from there. So this is it. When you discover the power of love, life becomes a magical experience. So that's for me. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Godel. That was beautiful. And I hope you get to put your roof on your mum and dad. I'm sure you will.
I'm very sure, Dave, and man, I am deeply grateful for the support that I received from you, man, from you and Jen.
You're welcome.
Very grateful.
We're really grateful just to have you in our lives, mate. We're grateful to have met you.
Thank you.
I think at that point, I don't want to say anything now. I just think we're going to take a break. If everybody's all right with that, we'll have 10 minutes. See you in 10. Welcome back. Hiya, Sabia. Thanks for joining us, love.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Dave. Sorry, I just couldn't get here on time.
That's all right, love. Thanks for joining us now.
Yeah, I'll
What
make
time
the
is-
recording up.
Oh, great. What time are you on till 9 o'clock?
Yeah, 9 o'clock.
Great. Thank you.
9 o'clock. We're discussing the topic of love. The topic came about from one of our favorite chocolates, Booja Booja, champagne truffle. And it was just a little card, and it said, "Love when everything's pressing you to be less." Well, it was something that you really enjoyed and really liked, and that's what tonight's topic's about. And so we've had a bit of a chat about it, and
Hey, me and my daughter are having Booja Booja dark chocolate right now.
You-
Me and Sophia. Jen and Dave are having the same chocolate we are. It was my birthday chocolate. My husband brought me some.
I had a lot last night. Oh, you enjoy it. There you go.
Yes, we're just eating them right now.
I only had a little bit of half. There was only like a little piece left.
Yes.
Can I get some?
No, it's way past your bedtime. Okay, I'm going to put you on silent now. She's trying to haggle more off me.
What I love about Booja Booja is Mr. Booja Booja is actually called Colin. Don't know his surname.
Colin Mule.
Colin
Mule.
Meal. Excellent name. Colin, the chocolatier. Anyway, thanks for that, Sab.
I was just gonna say, it was like on the break, we're both like, we're really glad we've just had a break, because so often when we listen to Gordell speak, like he's been someone who has been through so many trials and challenges in his life, and he has been kind of the subject to all kinds of discrimination. And what I love about when he speaks is that he's so honest. I love that how honest he was in terms of, I got really angry and and it affected my relationships, but then he woke up and this understanding, he was one of those people. And we did 3 days with his charity in 2018, or I think July 2018, and he just saw something that he's continued to learn from. Like we used to speak to him maybe every month, and now it's a bit more sporadic, but he just keeps on learning from that insight that he had about the nature of life. And what I heard in what he said is that he's found gratitude for the experience he had of being discriminated against, losing all that money. But the next day, what came to his mind was the gratitude for the understanding he had, and gratitude for
humanity,
or for the realization that he had not loved himself. And there's something about that experience that it's been all over the internet and Twitter. It's been, his story and his photograph has been spread really far. And it's like he suddenly got love for himself. And it'd be so easy in that moment to be like, oh, of course he's justified in being angry. Why would he find gratitude? Why would he find love? Like, you can see how, and when he was telling the story, like I was starting to get angry and feel for him. Like, how dare they? Like, what, he's such an incredible man, and I know how much that has meant to him to be able to go and be part of that.
He's been speaking about that for a long time.
But he always just amazes me. I don't know why I'm amazed, because we're always amazed, but actually when he always has these.
I think we're amazed that we're amazed, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's like, because if anybody ever gets the opportunity to meet Gordell, he is just one seriously awesome human being. He emanates love. He just is love. His whole thing is about helping people. He just wants to help people. His charity, Redeeming Hope for the Disabled, was set up for disabled refugees coming from all over whoever comes into South Africa. If they're disabled, they have somewhere to stay, as long as he's got space. And then he was like, why am I being segregatory, whatever the word is? He opened up to South Africans as well. No, what, everybody come in. He just opens up his heart. He opens up his home. He opens up his kitchen. He has he hasn't got a lot, but he gives everything. Beautiful man. Truly beautiful man. Has anybody got anything they want to say? Frank.
I just wish, I want to say thanks to Goodell. He's gone now, but yeah, it was just, and just hearing that, it just so hopeful, just to give that ability to, that we have, just to love, and we get caught up in our thoughts because that's what we do, and we get angry, we get indignant, and then just another beautiful example of just being able to love. You can't, it never ceases to be surprising or fresh or amazing. It never ceases. And yeah, but you don't see it until you see it. That's the thing. That's the thing, and that's what I find. And my latest, just, so what do you do when you're not feeling the love? What do you do? I don't know.
Get some booja booja, don't you?
My mother says, get some booja booja.
Maybe.
Sounds like you got your question right just then, Mum. Or your answer right, should I say. You know, one of the things that Godel spoke about then was acceptance. Again, you know, I mentioned this before, but I remember going to the Manjushri, the Buddhist temple near us, and a Buddhist monk gave a whole talk on acceptance. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I do remember this one line. The moment we start accepting, healing starts. That's both on a personal level and on a social level. It's on a global level. Think about it logically. If we could find acceptance for how we feel, rather than trying to fight it, pissed off right now. Full stop. I'm upset right now. Full stop. I'm worried right now. Full stop. If we could find that acceptance in that moment, there's nothing to go to war with.
The other thing I heard in what Godel was saying is like we can learn, and it seems like every time he's been faced with something in his life, even before he came across the principles, he found acceptance seemed to find him, and then he'd learn, and then he'd be inspired. So it was because of the xenophobic attacks of 2008 where his property was going to be petrol bombed and everyone else could get out, but he couldn't because he was disabled. And someone luckily had phoned the police, so he got rescued. And initially, you know, he was scared and he was angry. He said, but so quickly that passed, and then he felt moved to act. What can I do? How can I help? How can I serve? And then he created this amazing charity, and he's managed to get, you know, speak to the UN and the government in South Africa and have this property now where they grow their own vegetables, and they're trying to teach skills and find ways into work and help people with their paperwork. So from a situation that was really hard for him, it's like he found acceptance, and then he learned, and then he felt moved to action. And it seems throughout his life there's these things, because we raised money to get him to come to the conference in the UK to speak, and then there's all of this kind of red tape, and his visa got turned down because he didn't have enough money in his bank account to prove that he wasn't going to come. And we were so pissed off and frustrated by it, and he was just like, it is what it is, and maybe next year. And he has this way of acceptance is just something that seems to come so naturally to him, and he's so honest about, sometimes he gets caught out, sometimes he gets angry, sometimes he gets upset, but so quickly it's like he finds acceptance, and then he's moved, and from that place of us settling down, we're moved to do something else, or to, I don't know, there's learning built into it. There's learning built into the forgetting, because when we come out of it, we can grow and see. And I think we get so caught up in the lostness and we forget the coming out of it and what we've learned and what we can see. And it's almost like if your focus shifts away from the lostness and trying to get out of that, when you do come out of it naturally, as we always do, there's more learning and gratitude there.
Yeah. You know.
Can I add something, Jen?
Of course.
Who was that?
Flick.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. Nice to see
Hello.
you. Hello. No, I really like what Jen was just saying, and when he was telling the story about being turned away at the airport, it reminded me of something I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is how these kind of like physical or mental, emotional, any kind of challenge that's thrown at you feels like a call to your soul to step up in some way. And I almost feel like recently I've been feeling like they're almost purposeful as an invitation to evolve in a way that you're meant to evolve. And you can choose to take it, or you can choose to be angry and stay in the darkness, which obviously he didn't do. But when I remember Jen saying before, like when she gets to, I think you said like the dark place or stuck in thought, part of you might be excited with the realization of, oh, I wonder what insight's going to come out after the end of this. And I find like seeing challenges in that way is really useful. You're like, oh, cool, there's going to be some great shit at the end of this. Helps me get through. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. Thanks for sharing, Jen.
It just seems we always want, like, we always want a convenient challenge, don't we? A challenge that'll just be nice and convenient, won't hurt too much, but it'll give us all the lessons without any of the pain.
Doesn't work like that.
I like that, a convenient challenge. Not too much. I don't have to work. I don't have to find it too hard. It's quite a beautiful thing when we can approach life like that, Flick. You know, one of my favourite quotes of Sydney Banks's was, if the only thing that human beings learned was not to become afraid of their...
Not to fear their own experience.
Say it again, you say the whole thing.
If the only thing human beings learned was not to fear their experience, the whole world would change.
Correct. Yeah, if the only thing human... Say it again.
Makes sense.
No, you say it.
Paraphrase.
No.
It's nice. Am I heard?
No, because you're just going to correct me.
I won't.
If the only things human beings learned was not to fear their experience, that alone will change the world. You know, it's quite a powerful statement. We all think our experience is real. We all think that the way the world is appearing to us is true and real. It's beautiful when we start to see it's not. It's a perspective born of thought. If it was real, we'd all see it. There would never be an argument on the face of planet Earth. There'd be nothing to argue about. Nothing to argue about. Why? Because it would all be real. Well, if it's real, there's nothing to argue about. We'd all see it's real. Human beings do not realize reality is an illusion. It's a spiritual dream. It's a spiritual dream from birth till death and continues after death, the same place where it was before we came into being. I think this is why Sid's message is so beautiful, when people start to wake up and realize about the power of thought. They can start to get a perspective on their experience, and from that experience, they learn not to fear it quite as much. Yeah, it looks fucking real. It looks fucking real as well at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're dreaming about falling off a cliff, or you're being chased down by some mad person or something. It looks really real. You know, your body doesn't know the difference. It sweats, your heart pounds, and you're full of adrenaline, but yet you're safely tucked up in bed. your body doesn't know the difference. So when it comes to everyday life, the dream of life, the dream of reality, the dream in the nighttime is all thought. What people don't realize is the dream of daytime is all thought too. It's the same process taking place. It just looks like it's more real because our senses are enlivened. And then we think the way that we see the world is real, and we get all high and mighty and self-righteous about it all. We all get caught out by this.
You end up feeling a victim of it.
Yeah, we end up feeling a victim of the world, victim of other people. No, we're a victim of our own dream, of our own illusion. This was the realization that set me free, was the realization that reality is all something we call thought. It's all a dream state. And every single one of us is dreaming our own dream. That looks real, but it's not. It's as real as a dream. We call it reality. We don't question it because it's real. Because it looks so real. And we get mesmerized by that. We get mesmerized by the reality. We get mesmerized by the reality. We get mesmerized by the reality. We buy into it. We start thinking deeper and deeper and deeper until we get sucked into this space of consciousness that is so constricted by beliefs. We can't seem to find our way out. But it all looks real. Until one moment when the mind gets quiet and it all disappears. Even if just for a glimpse, you get to see that reality is all a state of mind.
I think Godel's story just kind of really shows that, because, you know, for the night he was in anger and judgment and, you know, and then the next day the same things happened and he's in a completely different experience. Nothing in the world has changed and he's experiencing it different. So there'll be so many examples in our own life of that. Nothing has changed, but we see it differently. How real was it? Was it that thing creating the experience? Like, I think as soon as you've got eyes for this, you see it everywhere.
And that goes back to Johnny's thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny, our friend Johnny, wrote on Facebook. I didn't get to read it. I think I read a little bit of it. But how this is not different. What's going on in the world now is not different. It's not different. We're still living in the same dream state, dreaming up reality. Nothing's changed. It's the same thing taking place as what took place 20 years ago, 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 2 million years ago. Reality's always been a state of consciousness. It's always been thought, dreamt within beings. And it's always looked real to each and every single one. And it's interesting because there's so many different kind of things going on in the world and so many different theories. But mystics, people who enter into this space of awareness, they all come back and talk about the same thing. They don't disagree on this point. That they're fundamentally behind all life is a unified state of infinite love. And it creates all people. And all people, it says in the Bible, it says in the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. Whatever God is, you are. On earth, you are the same as how it works on earth is the same as how it works in heaven. We're all a divine thought. We're all thought into experience. Reality is a divine thought. It's divine consciousness. It's not something we invented. It's a pre-existing fact. And then that divine thought dreams this whole universe into being, and within this dream we dream. Infinite amount of dreams taking place on earth right now. Some of them are just being born and some of them are just leaving, but life and death is now. It's all now, everything's now. And everybody's looking to escape life. Trying to escape feelings. Why are we trying to escape? What is there fundamentally to be afraid of? If somebody can wake up and see the whole game of life is all thought, it's all a state of consciousness. If it wasn't, we would all see the same reality. We don't. There wouldn't need to be Facebook so you could put all your points of view out. We wouldn't even need language. We wouldn't need to talk about the way we see the world, what we like and what we dislike. We wouldn't need language because we'd all see the same reality. There'd be nothing to talk about. Language only exists because we are literally all trying to talk about our dreams and put our dreams across into other people. It's the only reason for language. Mel, have you got your finger up, love?
Yeah, it's nothing profound, I'm afraid. Godel's conversation was amazing. But I just wanted to thank actually everyone on the call, because I'd been watching the retreat that you guys, literally, it's been taking me ages because I'm watching like an hour and Jess is in bed or something. It's taken me like 5 weeks to watch it. But I've been taking little bits in, and it was, yeah, just everything that everyone said was amazing. And a few nights ago, my daughter, we've just moved house, and my daughter wanted to sleep in like what's the guest room. And I was like, yeah, sure, we'll just go in there. We normally all end up in different beds anyway, because she comes in with us and then Chris goes out because he's getting kicked by her. So we always end up in various rooms. And I said, yeah, we'll go in this room together. And I woke up at about 1:30 and I'd had the most horrific dream. Horrific. It was so scary. And I woke up and I started thinking, God, like I started thinking this house is haunted. And then I started telling myself all this stuff, and just coming up with all these stories. And it just reminded me of, I think Lisa said some things about just crazy thinking that's coming into our mind, you know, but really. And then somebody else on one of the other calls had said the same thing, you know, all this crazy thinking, and it just stopped me in my tracks. And I went into our main bedroom, and I was going to like move me and Jess in there because Chris was in there, and I got all my pillows, and then I thought, this is stupid, like stop this. So I went back into bed and I laid there with Jess, and I just laid there in the same room that I woke up petrified in, and I was still awake about an hour later. So I thought, right, I'm going to go and get a cup of tea. I went and got a cup of tea and a biscuit. I've never done this, right? I'm like 5 months pregnant. It was not ideal, digestive biscuits and sugary tea in the morning. But anyway, so I just sat in bed and I was getting more and more okay with it. And then I went and got my iPod, like my ear things, and I put more retreats on, and I watched more of you guys literally at 3 a.m. And I sat there till 4:30, right? I had no thinking about it. I mean, it was lucky. Chris is off work. I don't need to get up, go and work or anything. But when you keep talking about dream states, it's that scenario that I had that night, and I never have that. I'm never awake. I wake up a lot, but I go back to sleep. That's almost like how my life kind of is sometimes, like the pit of that when I woke up was that really, really heavy, scary thinking, like, oh my God, that dream's just happened. And I don't really get bad dreams, but it was so real and intense and horrible. And I could have quite easily, you know, exaggerated on the thinking and gone into a different room and then potentially think that the room was haunted forever and then have to move house, and it was just crazy stuff. But I sat there and I went from waking up feeling really frightened in the night to a few hours later just sitting there with a cup of tea, feeling really at home in the same room, and Jess was still laying there asleep. And it sounds really silly because I was really proud of myself. I was like, I've stayed here and there was nothing to hide from, like, and the actual thing is not very, it's a really boring story, but it just pointed out, it just showed me that I woke up in one situation in the same place and I experienced all this stuff, and then a few hours later I was sat there completely at peace in this room, this same room, and I'd forgotten most of it, and I didn't keep playing it over and trying to work out what was going on. And yeah, I'm sorry, it sounds like a really silly thing, but when you're talking about dreams, I kind of just wanted to share it, but I mainly wanted to share it to thank everyone that contributed as well to the retreat, because I got so much out of what everyone said. So it was a thank you to all of you as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mel.
That wasn't a boring story at all.
No, it's a very, very, very relevant story, love. You know, Flick, Plato, the quote you said for Plato the other day.
I don't remember it. Where did I get it from? About a cave, right? Oh, I'll find it and resend it. I know where it is.
Yeah. I thought it was really beautiful. I'd never heard that before, but it's very true. You know, our fear is that the world is never like we're in an experience and it's never going to leave us. It looks like this. You know, when we're in anger, remember we mentioned this a few times, but you and I went for a walk after a really rainy day, didn't we? And it was like it hammered it down all day, and then about 6 o'clock at night we went for a walk, and the sun was out. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and Jen went, "That's mad, isn't it? You would never have thought that after today like today, this would be the evening that we're having." And you said it's a bit like, you know, it is a bit like our mind. You know, it's like we go into an experience. When I talk about an experience, I'm talking about this moment right now. This is it. This kind of experience, living, being aware of life. And I'm not talking about a specific experience. I'm talking about the entirety of experience. And within the entirety of experiences, we have like all these different feeling states. And it looks like, and Jen said, why does it look like it's going to stay around forever? Permanent. Why does it appear to us like we're going to be this way forever? I'm going to be pissed off forever.
It feels like you've always been pissed off. It
Yeah.
just feels like it's just everything.
Yeah. And it just hit us like it's because now is forever. And right now is all there is. So right now, this is all that there is. So it looks permanent because in the moment, that's all there is. And so, but one of the things that I remember, a good friend of mine, his mum really struggled with depression. And his mum said, she actually said it to my sister, I think, I've realized my feelings are not permanent. That changed that lady's life. I realized my feelings are not permanent. And that changed her life. Because when we are aware that our feeling states come and go, our experiences come and go, it's like you don't fear them like what you once did. We all think that our feelings are giving us information about the world, people, the world, circumstance, the future, the past. They're giving us information about our mind because they are a direct reflection, creation of our mind. They bring thought to life. They bring experience to life, to feelings. The philosopher Plato argues that human beings are imprisoned in the cave of their own existence, falsely believing the temporary as having permanence. I love that flick. I love that. Where's my pen? We really, it is so compelling, is reality, that we buy into it wholeheartedly. And I think when Sid came along and he brought this into psychology, part of me I really respect the fact he brought it into psychology, but then it became almost like a psychology. This isn't a psychology. This isn't something to be added to NLP or an alternative to CBT or anything like this. Sid's message precedes every single thing in the universe. If somebody really realized what Sid had seen, they would have left the experience of this earth and they would have entered into the unity or the backdrop behind all things in the universe. And they would realize it is within them, that they are that. Almost like, I remember Terry, our friend Terry Rubenstein, saying she was creating a website. And she said, so much of the time, all we see is the front of the website. And we're all interested in the front of the website. Very few people are interested in what's going on behind the website. How the website's built. All the pages of information that exist behind it. Everybody's too busy looking at the website. But But when we start to understand how the website works, how to build a website, you start to understand why it shows up on the front screen as it does. And Sid's message was like that. It was like, if you can realize that there is a divine force at play in it, is all things, and nobody is exempt from it. Nobody on earth, nobody in the universe, no star in the universe, no speck of dust in the universe, no particle. Nobody ever has been and nobody ever will be. That there is this divine, infinite, animating knowledge. And he called it mind. And this mind is a state of consciousness. It is aware of itself. And it's the only thing it's ultimately aware of, is itself. It doesn't know the difference between you and I because we are it and it is itself. It only sees itself. And then thought, this ever-changing, infinite potential within it. To dream lives. To even dream the idea that it forgets that it knows itself. And to feel lonely and isolated within itself. And that's the only thing that's ever happened. It wakes up within itself and starts to realize what it is. And as it wakes up, it starts to find more love in life because that's what it's made of. But it also has the ability to forget. In Hindu, as we call it, Advaita. It's our friend Mahima in Nepal is brought up and they say not to. I think it speaks to your question, Paul or Claire. Duality. Explain duality. In Nepal, they grow up with this saying, or they call it Advaita. Advanta. Advanta or something. Mahima tells us. And it means not to. No here and there. No black and white. No up and no down. No high and no low. No man and no woman. No you and no me. Everything is ultimately one. The rest of it, the duality, the over here and the over there, the up and the down, the high and the low, the man and the woman, whatever it is what we call duality. It's an appearance. It's the appearance that the single force of all things in this universe take. And the moment it takes form, it's an individual expression of the same force. It's like picking up a grain of sand within the desert. The grain of sand comes from the desert. It looks like it's separate from the desert, but the grain of sand is the desert. That's what the desert is. It's like a wave on an ocean. The wave looks like an individual expression, but ultimately it's just an illusion of the ocean. That's why mystics have used the ocean for so many years as an example of to try and explain how everything is one force playing the game of many things. And this is just what's happening. It's just what's happening. So Dave could be a wave, Jenny a wave, Rusty a wave, everybody on this screen is a wave, but we're all born of the same ocean. Everybody's interested in the waves. Everybody's mesmerized by the waves. Nobody's becoming aware of the ocean, what they truly are. Everybody is made of water. And I don't mean that biologically, I mean that metaphorically. Biologically, 70% apparently. But I mean that metaphorically, if we're all waves on the ocean, we're all made of exactly the same thing. But each wave is a different expression. And waves come and go. As one wave reaches its peak, there is another wave dying. And the wave that reaches its peak has to go back into the mass only for a new wave to be born. It's birth and death. It's creation and destruction. You cannot separate them. They're both two are one. But we favor one over the other. because we think we're separate. And this is humanity's biggest problem. It thinks it's separate. We separate ourselves from nature. Nature is a wave on the ocean. We're not separate from nature. We are nature as much. We're as much nature as any other thing. We're as much nature as an oak tree, as the insects that crawl around on it, as the lichen that grows on its bark, or the ferns that grow in a rotting union on a branch. We are that nature, but we've separated ourselves. We're not separate from nature. We are nature. We separate ourselves culturally. We separate ourselves economically. We separate ourselves with ideologies, religiously. Like in terms of sex, male and female, we separate ourselves. Good and bad, right and wrong. Tribes. But really, the separation doesn't exist. The separation is all born of thought. We only think we're separate from each other. We only think we're separate from nature. Thought is the thing that creates the perspective of separation. It's what's called ego. The image of self, not divine self, but a separate self. A story we tell ourselves, who we think we are, how we think this world is. Our perspective, it's a perspective. That's what reality always is. It's always a perspective. It can only ever be a perspective. The truth about all things is that it's all something Sid called mind, religion calls God, science calls energy, mystics calls source. These are just words. They're dreamt up from thought. Words are just dreamt up from thought. They're just noises. But what the noises are trying to describe is real.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, Mel, like, it can seem like what we have to say isn't important. And so often, I know when I first came across this, I'd be moved to share, and then I wouldn't because I think it's not profound, or it's not fancy, or it's not something. But it's almost, when we have a shift in consciousness or an insight that really lights us up, it's like it's that light that helps people rather than necessarily even the story. It's like it's what it means to us. So in the same way you're grateful for everyone on the retreat for sharing, I'm grateful you share. Like, we've recorded this, and you never know. And it's that we've often said, like, when we've done retreats and things, it's almost like people get moved to share at different times, and it's that same space that we speak from, the sameness. And it took me a really long time to, like, be comfortable with my own voice and to share in groups, and to, like, it took me 2 years before I shared it, like, in small groups, and I'd still probably only share a small percentage of the time. But I'm kind of starting to trust, like, when there's a move, I feel moved to share, or move. Why am I telling that story, or why that? But it's not the words. It's something else, and I think that's why the retreat seemed so powerful, because it had all these different voices, all have been learning about these principles, but what they see is so, like, in the moment insight, closer to truth for them. And like, I've got videos from years ago that I still would keep up just because it meant something to me then, but I see it totally different now. So I don't know, I just, when we do groups and we ask, does anyone have anything to say, I know for myself, I used to just sit there and be like, I really have, but I don't want to say it in case it's stupid or not profound, but there's a real value in us sharing with one another, because it's so ordinary at the same time. Like, I think it is so profound and beyond words and huge, but then it's also the ordinary everydayness of it. And I think that's what I loved about Sid sharing, because it would be blow my mind, have no idea what you're talking about, kind of out there, and then he'd just tell a really funny story or share a moment with you. And a lot of the people that got to spend time with him said that the shifts really happened for them in the moments where they were just hanging out with Sid, and they'd be like wanting to share their insights with him, or wanting to, and he'd be like, yeah, just be here now, just look at this beautiful flower, let's drink our cup of tea. And he knew it was very ordinary, and he knew there was a place for sharing insights, but it's never the content of it. It's the feeling that kind of wakes up in us when we get insight. And then we kind of try and describe it and tell the story around it. But I think that's why he kept saying it's all in the feeling. It's in the feeling of it. And
the feeling is always a positive feeling.
Yeah, like it doesn't.
It's not one of anguish or suffering. It is one of positivity. It's one of an uplifted feeling state.
Yeah, as I was telling that story, I was thinking, why are you telling this is such a stupid thing? This isn't going to make any sense to anyone. Just shut up. But I did I just felt moved to say it. Because
Cool.
it just it almost that little clip of experience looked like my life experience, that realness of it, and then potentially running away from it, and then creating a big story about it, and then it being a massive problem. And when I was saying it, I was proud of myself for staying. Like, that isn't the thing I'm trying to describe. Like, that isn't what I'm talking about. It's something else. It's almost something different. Yeah. So you're right, Jenny. I really get what you're saying, because what I was actually saying kind of wasn't the thing I was trying to say, if you know what I mean. Thank you.
I could feel like it's something like it's like that light going on a bit more in us. And it's like, I know whenever the Americans tell this story, they regret using the G string, so I'm going to use the D string. If you pluck a D string in a guitar shop, all the other D strings vibrate. Like, there's a resonance. And I think it's like when we light up with something and we share that. Like, I know that in the first couple of years of coming across this, I had no idea what I was talking about, and I didn't understand anything, and I couldn't really listen to Sid because I just didn't. But then there's people in my life that changed, and there was like, when you said, and then they'd have a realization, and I started to grow in respect for life and that feeling and desire to share. And I remember someone saying to me, it's quite selfish of you, really. You're sat in a group and everyone else is sharing, and you sit there and you've got this wonderful thing that you're not sure because you might feel stupid or you might be embarrassed. And at some point it was like, despite myself, I had to start sharing, because it was too good a feeling to not start to share and give away. And like we've both said, there's been times where we think we've been so profound and had these wonderful calls with people, and then when you said that, and you're like, what, that silly little thing that I tagged on the end, that's the thing that for whatever reason struck them, and they heard something. And I think that's why Sid was constantly saying it's not in the words. No. And it can feel so frustrating, because we want it to be in the words, because then we can hold it and grasp it and
keep on looking at it.
And I often used to say, like, if it was in the words, we could literally type it out and send it to everyone, and that would be job done. So there's got to be more to it than that. What is the message that the words are trying to convey? They're trying to share a feeling, share a state, share a resonance. And that's something that, I don't know, like I loved the retreat because of how many people shared, and they all shared in different ways, different stories, but every single person that shared, like, it meant something. And I think because it took me so long to be able to share, I've got so much respect for people that even though they're nervous, they will share with a group, because it is in that collective sharing. I remember it being described at a conference like blind people trying to describe an elephant, so that like someone's feeling its trunk and then someone's feeling its ear and someone else they're all describing it slightly differently. They're all describing an elephant, but they're describing different aspects of it, and actually the more descriptions, the more of this picture of the elephant would come to life for people. And it's the same with this understanding. Like, there's all something we've seen that's meant something, and we're describing it, and then slowly with that, people get a picture or a sense. And I'm really grateful for people who share, and I'm grateful for people that listen, and it's not forcing people to. I know sometimes we do just unmute people and tell them to share, but we haven't done that for a while. You do it now. You gonna do it?
No, I wouldn't do that. Paul, you got upset.
So I'm not feeling well, so that's my excuse as to why I haven't really took part in anything tonight. And it's affected how I'm like kind of listening. I haven't been paying full attention. But the couple of things that I would like to say is I still don't know the 3 principles. I don't care that I don't know them. And today I had one little, another little insight. And Claire, we were just driving along, and Claire turned around and she went, "Oh, Paul, I really love you." And my reply was, "You know what? So do I." And I have never had any love for myself until discovering this. So a big thank you again for everything. Yeah, just a big thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Speaks very much to what Godel was talking about.
And I hear congratulations in order for making your first ever roast dinner.
Oh, yeah.
That looked pretty good from the pictures.
Bloody hell. Who knew? Jamie Oliver. Putting them turkey Twizzlers away, won't you? Doing your roast dinners. Stop showing off, Paul. Making me look bad. Has anybody got anything they want to say? Thanks for that, buddy.
Yes, please.
Frank.
I just wanted to say thanks to Catherine. I only came on one of your meetings about 6 months ago, and Colin and Catherine told such an amazing story. I haven't stopped thinking about it since, Catherine. Thank you.
Can I ask what it was?
Oh well, it would take a while to tell it, actually.
How long have we got left?
Do you want to tell it again, Catherine?
Go on, Catherine.
All night. I'm going to say, have you got all night? It took me a long time last time to tell it. Well, I think it was briefly. Well, I'll not be too brief, but I had my awakening pretty much about this time last year, and I've done this twice, so I'm not really sure which one it is that you saw, Frank. I know I'd talked about the fact that I'd gone through an awful lot. It's basically a lot of grief through people that have died in my life that I was trying to deal with. And I had 5 years of looking after my mum with Parkinson's, and then she died very quickly. She had cancer, and she died 2 weeks after she was diagnosed. And I've mentioned just after my mum died, I found out that my dad had cancer, and so I had a year nursing my dad. My dad died. As soon as he died, we'd got my stepdad, year nursing him, and he died. And it was all, most of it was left to me, because there's only me I've no brothers and sisters. So even though family really helped, a lot of it was, a lot of decisions were mine to make, and I did a lot of the actual caring. And after that, oh gosh, Colin had a heart attack, nearly died, and then it happened again, he nearly died again. I was very, very ill. I nearly died. So it's everything all happened, and we'd got all this lot going on just over a short period of time. Well, 5 years, but for all that lot to happen in 5 years, it's a lot to deal with. And then I just felt like everything was getting sorted out. And then we had problems in my family, people squabbling in the family. And I just thought, this time last year, I thought, I've absolutely had enough. and I went to bed normal. I said normal, normal and stressed, because last year, I think I mentioned as well that this time, just before Christmas last year, I'd absolutely fed up to teeth, had enough, and I decided, right, Christmas is cancelled. And I says, chuck that tree away. I said to you, didn't I? Take it to effing tip. So he took the tree to the tip, and Christmas totally cancelled Christmas dinner, everything. And then at New Year, I went to bed just feeling my normal, fed up, pissed off self because I'd cancelled everything. And then I just woke up 3 o'clock in the morning and something had happened. I can't say what, just something happened. And I said to you, didn't I, do you want a cup of coffee? We had a cup of coffee, sat up in bed, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just felt, I started laughing and giggling. I was feeling like I was bordering on hysteria. I said, I don't know what's happened, but something's happened. I said, I don't know what. I was just laughing. And I said, I've done with it. I've absolutely done with it. I'm not having any more of it. I said, I'm moving forward. I'm sick to death of this. We're just moving on from now. And I was laughing, saying, well, this is it. This is me now. You've got a new wife. Do you think you can cope with me? Can you deal with me? And then there's poor Colin looking at me as if I've lost the plot. But I've just totally moved on since then. And I've never lost that feeling of moving forward. I've still put it all behind me, all the anger I felt towards my stepdad, who, even though I couldn't stand him, I absolutely hated that man's guts. But I still had to nurse him right until he died. I held his hand when he was dying, hated doing it, but I did it. And all the anger from my stepdad went as well. And I feel that I've put it all behind me and I'm looking forward. I feel peaceful inside I have done for the last year. I felt peaceful inside and it all just happened. So when I started, I didn't know what had happened to me. I totally didn't understand it. None of us understood it, did we? Mm-hmm. Apart from the fact that I changed. And then Colin had been reading Sasha's books, Genevieve, haven't you? So I read it as well because I liked what Colin was telling me about it. So I read that, and then in Genevieve, Sasha was talking about Sydney Banks. So I was sat in the conservatory. Colin was sat watching Sydney Banks, and I was in another room, and I could hear Sydney Banks going on. And I'm thinking, what's that he's listening to? I want to listen to that. So I went in, and then Sasha mentioned yourselves, Dave and Jen. So we started watching Dave and Jen. We called it the Dave and Jen Show because we liked it. And then we liked what we were hearing. And we realised that I'd had an awakening last year. So I did it totally back to front. So instead of having all these problems and Dave and Jen being absolutely amazing like you are and sorting me out, something happened to me, and Dave and Jen, thank you very much. You made me realise what's happened, and that I'd had an awakening, and I understand. Well, I feel like I understand what happened now, and I feel that all my life I'd always felt like I felt a little bit envious of people who have a religion because I don't believe in any way. But they've always had a bit of a prop to lean on when things get bad. And I think if I'd had the 3 principles when I was going through losing my mum and my dad and everything, I think I would have had something or someone to talk to as well, because I know I would have been able to talk to you two as well. So I feel like I would have coped with it better. But at least now, I understand things a lot better, and I understand why I'm feeling a lot more peaceful inside. So I think that's what you meant, isn't it, Frank? So was there anything else that I said that was there anything else part of that I've missed that you remembered?
No,
No.
that was exactly it. Thank you.
That's a shortened version.
Thanks, Frank, for pointing that direction. I hadn't heard that story. That was beautiful, Catherine. Thank you.
And I think what's beautiful about that, Catherine, your story, love, is it points to whether people come across the principles or not, it's at play. You know, in any moment we can realize we can have a shift in consciousness. And the moment we have a shift in consciousness, people can't explain it. They're like, I don't really know what the hell's happened. I don't know what happened to me. I can remember it. I can't tell you about it. I can't describe it. But it's like what we're talking about is up and real. It's up and running. It's just a fact. And so without any conversation around the three principles or Sydney Banks or anything like that, you had a shift in consciousness, and that shift in consciousness brought around a corresponding shift in reality, your reality. It's such a telling point, you know, that takes place regardless. The three principles are just a metaphor. It's the same as religion. Religion's ultimately a metaphor for God to try and help people find the unity of all things, love. Like Godel said, the Bible's all about love. That's what the Bible's all about. Find love, find love, find love, learn to love, learn to love, learn to love. Come out of hate, come out of fear, come out of separation and learn to love. That's what the Bible's all about. And you found it just by being in bed. You found love over judgment, over hatred, over the past. All of a sudden, that was neutralized. Say that again, look.
I also realised gratitude as well, because before my mum passed away, we'd had 5 years of it. It was, anybody will know, you know, watching your mum dying like that, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. You're losing her before you've lost her. So I felt like I'd lost my mum a couple of years before she actually died. Because I was watching every day, I was losing a bit of her. And I can remember, it must have only been about 4 or 5 months, something like that, before she actually died. And I can remember just being so upset and just trying to deal with it all and everything. And I can remember thinking to myself, I need this to be over. And I felt so guilty then, because the only way that it would be over would be for my mum to die. And that was heartbreaking for me to think, but that's how I felt. And then when I found out that my mum had cancer and she died so quickly, she died just 2 weeks after diagnosis. When she died, I was grateful. And now that sounds awful for me to say, I was grateful that she died, but I wasn't grateful for me because it was over. I was devastated when it was over, because I wasn't, even though she died very, very quickly, I wasn't expecting her dying. So I knew she'd got Alzheimer's, but I didn't think that she'd be dying as quickly as she did. And then getting cancer and 2 weeks, dying just 2 weeks after diagnosis, I wasn't ready for that. So she's still sent to die very, very quickly. I thought I'd still have another year or something with her at least. So when she died with cancer, I actually felt grateful, not for me, but for my mum, because I think it was so merciful for her to die when she did, because she'd got to the stage where she would have been becoming incontinent, and she still knew me. She knew her family. So if she wouldn't have wanted, she still had a dignity when she died. And if she'd carried on, she'd have been incontinent, she wouldn't have known us, and she would have hated to be like that. So I was glad that she died before she got to that stage. For her, I was grateful that she died when she did, to spare her, which it sounds a little bit backwards really, to be grateful that your mum died, but I was, but not for me, but for her.
Isn't that life? Isn't that, it's, you know, it's another beautiful thing. The amount of people we speak to.
Before, I wouldn't have I would have felt guilty about that, feeling like that, but I don't now. I feel that I'm okay to feel that it's all right to feel that, because I'm feeling it for her.
You know, there isn't any wrong feelings. There's no such thing as wrong feelings. That's a judgment. That's an idea. That's a perception. That's just a thought. You know, and there really isn't such a thing as a wrong feeling. How can there be such a thing as a wrong feeling? There is no such thing as a wrong thought. Ultimately, there's no such thing as a wrong experience. In the grand scheme of things, there's no such thing as a wrong experience. But I think it's such a telling thing, Catherine, that, you know, we often come across people talk, not the same scenario, obviously, because the scenario is always unique. But people who go through real trials, we have an idea what it looks like. Oh, when that happens, it's going to be terrible. One of our good friends, my sister Ewan and Jen and I, one of our good friends, walked a big walk in Europe. And she was like, when I get to the end, I'm going to be bursting into tears when I get into that church. And my sister went with her. And she said when she got there, she looked around and was like, is this it? Like this great finale. And then she just looked at Lisa and went, should we go and get some food? And they walked out. And she said, you know, Are you leaning forward, Luke?
No, I was going to carry on.
Oh, just, it's like.
So I love the fact Lisa had no expectation, but you actually get really filled with this feeling when you're in the church.
Rach just turned around and looked at me. She went, I'm bored. Should we go and get some chips?
She just walked 500 miles.
She just spent a week telling me how amazing it was going to be when we got to the cathedral, and she got in there. She was like, "It's just shit. Should go get some chips." Funny.
Like, we make up stories about the future, and then we live them now as though it's true. And it's only when we actually get to the moment, one, do we realize we can actually deal with it? There's nothing in life we cannot deal with. Nothing. We can deal with all of life. We're built to take life. We're built from life. We are life. To take life, you are life. It's like, but to learn from those moments, like Catherine's talking about, you know, when we look back and we look back at the times we've really struggled, and only to come across the actual situation, perhaps we're worried about a future event, only to come across the situation, one, to see it didn't turn out like what we thought it was going to anyway. That was a waste of a good worry, wasn't it? And then, you. How was I just supposed to say?
It doesn't turn out how you think it does, and then you wasted a worry.
Yeah.
I don't know the next bit. She didn't say it.
Oh, and two, you can deal with it. You've dealt with it. You know, worry. We all worry from time to time. But you realise what worry is. It's imagination. It's imagination. It's the same thing as a kid picking up a stick pretending it's a sword. It's the same force. It's our imagination of a future that truly doesn't ultimately exist. And so when we actually get to the moment of whatever it be, that your mum dying, it's like you look back at it with a very different point of view to what you could possibly have imagined you would have done. And it's such a beautiful thing to become aware of, because it's this awareness. The only thing Sid spoke about was awareness. Awareness. He didn't tell anybody what to think. Become aware of how reality works. That's it. Then go and live. Understand life is a full contact thought. Understand life is a full-on contact sport. You know, anything can happen in life. Anything. Absolutely anything. This is within the infinite possibility of this universe. Anything can happen. It's a dream. Sid would say, go and live your life, but understand it's a full-on contact sport. You're going to get your knocks. But it's not the knocks that count. It's how you've dealt with them that determines on how your life looks. And if people can start to understand the foundation of life, if they can start to understand how life works, that truly is a psychological experience from birth till death. And there is no escaping it, because it's the only thing that's actually going on. If people can wake up to that, if people can really see it, they're free. They're free to dream. They're even free to get lost. They're even free to feel scared. But the fear of fear dies. There's an acceptance of fear. We don't need to fight the reality anymore. We experience the reality. And that is such a different point of view to live life from. Sid's message was never about trying to fix anybody. This isn't about fixing anybody, because nobody's broken. We just think we are. We think we're different. I'm different. I don't get this. No, nobody's different. It's just the way it is. Difference is a duality. The duality doesn't exist. Catherine, thanks for sharing that, love. I think, Lise, do you want to just say, did you have something you want to say? It's just 9:20. Are you right? Cool. We'll call it an evening, people.
Last group of 2020.
Yeah, we'll see you next year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
hope everybody has a wonderful night tomorrow night. Don't get hammered.
Bye.
One second.
Thanks, Catherine. That was a beautiful story.